Sorry, we're sharing a device up here. Okay. Here we go. Good morning. My name is Amy Self, and I serve as your worship leader this morning. One thing I love about this congregation is all the different ways that we have to connect. We connect here on Sundays. We connect when we sing in choir together. We connect doing committee meetings and community nights once a month and doing social justice work. And all the fun auction items. I just love that there are so many ways that we connect. I think I have something on my social calendar that has to do with UUCB every week of the year. So I love that. It's nice. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Boulder. I want to take a moment to extend a very warm welcome to everybody who's visiting us for the first time. If you're joining us online, please fill out a visitor form in the link in the description. We'd love to connect with you. Part of our mission is to connect bravely, and we're glad that you're sharing part of your Sunday here with us all together. Many of us were once too seeking for something larger than ourselves to which we could belong, a sense of rootedness to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but authenticity and connection. Whether it's your first time here in worship or your 100th time, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in loving boldly, living justly, and welcoming radically. I'm delighted to welcome Reverend Lydia Ferrante-Roseberry as our guest speaker. Reverend Lydia is a very dear friend of mine of many years. We met when our sons attended the same daycare. And we have been supporting each other in the ups and downs of life ever since then. She is the former minister of the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in Lafayette and currently working as an organizer with Together Colorado, a statewide faith-based organization dedicated to placing human dignity at the center of public life. Reverend Lydia is also a certified interplay leader, an embodied spirituality practice that brings body, mind, and spirit together in playful ways. Emily has an announcement.
Hello, everyone. I've been away for a little while, so let me reintroduce myself. I'm Dr. Emily Coriath. I'm your music director here at the UU Church of Boulder. I'm very excited to let you know that if you turn your head gently to the right, you will see a brand new face. This is Austin Skeffington, who is our new collaborative pianist. I told him that you would be very excited, so he's ready for that. So while his contract officially begins in August at the start of the new church year, we're just lucky enough that we had openings in our calendar, and so he's going to be with us the next 3 Sundays, kind of getting used to how we do things and getting to know our systems a little bit better. Austin started out, like many of us, wanting to be a rock star, so he and his 2 brothers worked on their vision of starting a rock band. He was not allowed to play the guitar because he's not the oldest brother. So luckily for us, he shifted his focus to the keyboards. He accidentally stumbled into his high school's jazz band and was so successful and doing so well that he then found his way to the jazz program at CU Boulder. You know a little bit about that. It's a pretty good place. He recently graduated, and one of his capstone projects was creating an evening of music for an 18-piece big band, which he rehearsed and arranged and organized, not only the live event, but also a studio recording. He also makes music with his partner, Sophie, and they perform as Soph and Austin, kind of an indie rock duo. And so we're thrilled about the wealth of experience that he's going to bring to our growing music ministry. So one more time, please join me in welcoming Austin.
Good morning, everyone. It is such a delight to be here. As Amy mentioned, I am the former minister of the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, so I see very many familiar faces here among you. And this is the first time I've preached since I left my congregation at the end of January. So I'm just honored to be here with you for that, with me. So our opening words today are from Tom Barrett, and the title of this poem is "What's in the Temple?" In the quiet spaces of my mind, a thought lies still, but ready to spring. It begs me to open the door so it can walk out. The poets speak in obscure terms, pointing madly at the unsayable. The sages say nothing but walk ahead, patting their thighs, calling us to follow. The monk sits pen in hand, poised to explain the cloud of unknowing. The seeker seeks just around the corner from the truth. If she stands still, it will catch up to her. Pause with us here a while. Put your ear to the wall of your heart. Listen for the whisper of knowing there. Love will touch you if you are very still. If I say the word God, people run away. They've been frightened, sat on until the spirit cried, "Uncle." Now they play hide and seek with somebody they can't name. They know he's out there looking for them and they want to be found, but there is all this stuff in the way. I can't talk about God and make any sense, and I can't not talk about God and make any sense. So we talk about the weather, and we're talking about God. I miss the old temples where people could hang out with God. Still, now we have pet pounds where you can feel love draped in warm fur and sense the whole tragedy of life and death. You can see there the consequences of carelessness and feel the yappy urgency of life that still wants to be lived. The only things lacking there are frankincense and myrrh. We don't build many temples anymore. Maybe we've learned that the sacred can't be contained. Or maybe it just can't be sustained inside a building. Buildings crumble. It's the spirit that lives on. If you had a temple in the sacred spaces of your heart, what would you worship there? What would you bring to sacrifice? What would be behind the curtain in the Holy of Holies? Go there now. Look behind the curtain.
Our opening hymn this morning is number 1008, which can be found in your teal hymnal. If music reading is not your thing, the words will be on the screen, and I will invite you to rise in body or in spirit and join in singing. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love. promised I would move the microphone, and then I forgot.
Now I tried to move it. There we go. So this wisdom story is very, very near and dear to my heart. And I'm actually not somebody who remembers stories very well, but this one I have remembered for years. In fact, I used it when I was doing my candidating in 2007 to be in the position that ultimately led me to the Boulder Valley Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. So it is definitely a story for all ages. So listen attentively. In some of the early Buddhist traditions, the Buddha would reincarnate into different forms and often animal forms. And in this story, the Buddha is a parrot. And the story is called The Brave Parrot. So in one of Buddha's incarnations as a parrot, the Buddha lived in a beautiful forest and could fly around as a parrot and see all the beautiful animals down below, enjoying themselves and grazing on the grasses and frolicking through the woods, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful place. But like in all forests, sometimes there were thunderstorms. I wonder if we could make some thunderstorms with our... And it would get louder, and then softer. And then during this one particular thunderstorm, boom! There was a big crash of thunder and lightning that struck a tree. Uh-oh. And a fire started. And the parrot, who was above, could see the fire spreading and was yelling to the animals, "Quick, run to the river, run to the river!" But the animals couldn't hear him above the flames. And so the animals, he could see the fire starting to kind of encircle so that the animals couldn't even get to the river. And he started to get very concerned. And so he said, "What can I do? How can I help all these animals in this fire? It's just spreading and spreading, and what can I do?" And so he decided on a whim to go to the river himself, fill his wings with water, fly up over the fire and shake his wings down. And guess what happened? Not too much. But the Buddha was determined because he said, if I can help this in any way, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to help put out this fire. And he went back down and he filled his wings and flew and shook them out, and not too much happened. And he did this over and over and over again, and his wings were starting to get scorched, and he was just tirelessly doing this. Now, up above, in the realm of the gods were up there looking down at the parrot and saying, "Oh, what a silly parrot. That's just absolutely ridiculous." And they were eating their delicious honey and bread and just having a grand old time up there. And one of the gods got a little curious and decided he actually wanted to help out a little bit. So he turned himself into a hawk, and he went down to try and save the parrot. And he said, "Parrot, don't be foolish. Save yourself. You can't stop this fire." And the parrot just looked up at him and said, "That's not helpful at all. If you wanted to be helpful, you would be helping me put out this fire. I'm going to do everything I can to try and make this situation a little better." And the hawk, watching the parrot and seeing the animals who were there so scared in this fire, the hawk was moved to tears. And the tears began to flow down, many, many tears, and they dripped off of the parrot's wings. And when they got down and landed on the ground, they actually started to put out the fire. And more, the more the hawk cried and the tears dripped off the parrot's wings, the fire not only went out, but a whole new crop of trees and bushes and grasses grew, and the animals were fine. And then the little parrot soared above, content at what had happened and the difference that was made. I am going to invite our younger ones to go with Mark, right? Yes, who is, Rachel's out today. She has COVID, actually. So Mark is taking over. So thank you.
The chalice is a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist tradition. It is a cup of life, a sustenance to quench our spirit's thirst, a cup of celebration and resolve, a flame of hope, a light to warm our souls and guide us home. This morning, I'd like to invite Steve Todd to come and light this morning's chalice.
As Amy said, my name is Steve Todd, and I have the great pleasure of serving as a board member and current president in this exciting year of visioning, designing, and planning an upgrade and expansion of our church home, including this gathering space. For those of you who are newer, we invite members of the congregation to do the chalice lighting, which is described as saying something about yourself, maybe how you came to be here, maybe something on the theme of the day. And so I'm trying to weave all those threads together this morning. One of my favorite songs begins, "In every heart there is a room, a sanctuary, safe and strong." It's a song about the risks of opening your heart to another person. It describes the metaphorical room that can be opened wide to let it love in, and at other times locked up tight to protect ourselves from the hurts of love or life that sometimes happen. That word sanctuary has such a broad range of meanings, from a place of safety and refuge to this room we're in right now, where we come to laugh and sing and pray together, to open our hearts to one another and build relationships that make our lives so much richer, in fact, make us who we are. My two girls, Jen and Karen, grew up in the 70s and 80s hearing a lot of Billy Joel songs and singing along to them in our home. Songs like, "You may be right, I may be crazy, but it just may be a lunatic you're looking for." Or, I was spurred to remember, "We didn't start the fire. It was always burning since the world's been turning. No, we didn't light it, but we try to fight it." Or the song that I already mentioned, which ends, "So I would choose to be with you if the choice were mine to make. But you can make decisions too, and you can have this heart to break." Kari moved to Denver just last month, so I love having both of them close by. And I really loved sharing last week's Billy Joel concert at Coors Field with them and Heidi and 55,000 others, singing and dancing and cheering and belonging together like one huge family for an exhilarating few hours. Here at UUCB, I love getting the chance to make music occasionally with the Chancel Cats, and even more to be a part of this thriving community, especially this year as we envision expanding our fellowship and our facilities in ways that support deepening our connections and opening our hearts. And so I light this chalice in gratitude for the choice we each make to be here with one another.
We are a promise-making, promise-breaking, and promise-remaking people. We are called not to be perfect, but to be faithful. In that spirit, each week we speak our covenant aloud, all together. It is a reminder of the promises we make in this gathered community. In person and online, will you please rise in body or spirit and join as one as we say our covenant together. We gather in fellowship to speak truth to each other, reach out and touch one another, and to with each other, and to seek the truth divine. So be it.
I invite you now into a time of quiet contemplation. Begin by just paying attention to your own breath. Notice how it feels going in through your nose or through your mouth. Notice it filling up your lungs and your chest rising. Notice what it feels like going out. If you need to release anything on the out-breath that you don't need with you in this moment, it's a good time to do that. And I return to the words of Tom Barrett from our opening words. Pause with us here a while. Put your ear to the wall of your heart. Listen for the whisper of knowing there. Love will touch you if you are very still. What would be behind the curtain in the Holy of Holies? Go there now. Go behind the curtain. None of us are alone, although it may feel that way. There's a thread which weaves through this gathered community of broken hearts, a fiber of compassion that comes from knowing and holding and transforming suffering, tying us together as one, an unseen filament that connects every heart breaking with joy and breaking with sorrow. I love this ritual you have in your congregation to set aside time to make visible that unseen interconnection of hopes and concerns. For you gathered in person, the invitation is to come forward as you feel so moved, starting with the back half of the room, and then the folks, I believe, on this side by the windows, and then the front room. As you wait for your time, let your thinking quiet and let your breath steady. Call to mind the sorrows and the joys which weigh you down or lift you up. Silently take a stone in token of all that is in your heart and place it onto the earth, resting in something larger than any of us, a community connected by the concerns and love that we carry. For all of our joys and sadnesses, we hold this space in love and solidarity.
Sing, sing at the top of your voice, and love without fear in your heart. Feel like you still have a choice. If we all light up, we can scare away the dark. We wish our weekdays away, spend our weekends in bed. We drink ourselves stupid and work ourselves dead, and all just because that's what Mom and Dad said we should do. We should run through the forests, we should swim in the streams, we should laugh, we should cry, we should love, we should dream, we should stare at the stars and not just at screens. Hear what I'm saying and know what it means to sing. Sing at the top of your voice, and love without fear in your heart. Feel like you still have a choice. If we all light up, we can scare away the dark. Yeah, we wish we were happier, thinner and fitter. We wish we weren't losers and liars and quitters. We want something more than just nasty and bitter. We want something real, not just hashtags and Twitter. It's the meaning of life, and it streams live on YouTube. But I bet Gangnam Style will probably have more views. We're scared of flying and swimming and shooters, and we're all slowly dying in front of computers. So sing at the top of your voice, and love without fear in your heart. You should feel like you still have a choice. If we all light up, we can scare away the dark. Oh, 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 sing it out now.
When was the last time you had a meaningful conversation? Not with someone in your inner circle of family and close friends, but a meaningful conversation with someone you didn't know so well, or maybe didn't even know at all. The kind of conversation that left you changed in some way, feeling maybe more hopeful, connected, or even loved. I hope some of you can think of a recent moment when you were touched, even transformed by an interaction with someone you had previously not known so well. And I trust that there are many opportunities in this congregation for such moments. But as I was reflecting upon this, I realized that those opportunities are getting to be fewer and far between. Now, I might be dating myself here, but do you remember when there were actually toll takers when you went through the tolls, and it wasn't just some automatic thing that I don't know how it works, but reminds me of Big Brother? Do you remember when you had to go to the bank teller instead of the ATM machine? And you've noticed that checkout clerks are slowly being replaced by self-checkout. Travel agents are replaced by the web. All this to say is that we have fewer and fewer opportunities for chance interactions with people we don't know, whose paths may be different from ours. Without even these chance interactions, I fear that we might be losing touch with even how to interact with strangers, let alone have intentional conversations that can touch our hearts with people we don't know that well. In her book, Turning to One Another, Simple Conversations to Restore Hope in the Future, author and management consultant Margaret Wheatley writes, I believe we can change the world if we start listening to one another again. Simple, honest, human conversation. No mediation, negotiation, problem-solving debate, or public meetings. Simple, truthful conversation where each of us have a chance to speak, we each feel heard, and we each listen well. She continues, I wonder if you believe, as I do, that this world is in need of changing. That's the understatement of the year, I think. And she wrote this in like 2008 or something. Human conversation is the most ancient and easiest way to cultivate the conditions for change. Personal change, community and organizational change, and planetary change. When we sit together and talk about what's important to us, we begin to come alive. And as Howard Thurman famously said, what the world needs is people who have come alive. Now I'm going to take us back to that parrot, the hawk, and the burning forest. If you read commentary on this story, oftentimes the parrot is the protagonist. I'm not so sure about that. I think the parrot might be a catalyst, but not necessarily the protagonist. The forest is burning uncontrollably, and the parrot, no matter what he does, cannot put the fire out. Have you ever felt like that? Scurrying around with your family, dropping the kids off at camp, racing to the grocery store so that there's something for dinner, walking the dog while you listen to the podcast that a friend sent to you, then throwing in a load of laundry and shaking off your wings with any other drops that might be left in them, starting all over again the next day, wondering why things never change. Does that sound vaguely familiar to anybody's lives, or is it just me who can live like that? It's just me? No! I'm going to pack up and go home. Oh my God. And those of you who are engaged publicly in the midst of the fiery tempest of these times, you may be engaging by writing postcards, signing petitions, showing up at rallies, doing all the things. But they sometimes might feel like drops of water in a raging fire. So I certainly do see myself in that parrot more than I'd like to admit. And apparently somebody else here does not. But in this story, what I've realized is it's only when one of the gods from on high, detached and intellectualizing the whole situation, judgmental of what they see around them, it's only when one of them, something happens inside of them, and they cross over that border, first coming down to tell the parrot to save itself. But the change really happens when the hawk himself is transformed. The hawk got close enough to see the suffering, listened to the parrot, and allowed himself to be moved to tears before anything in that situation changed. He was moved by his relational experience in the real world. What moves you to tears? And by that same token, what brings you unbridled joy? Do you know? Can you access those sacred places in your heart of hearts? And more importantly, who do you share that with? beyond your intimate circle of family and close friends? Are you mostly talking about the weather with other folks? As Amy mentioned, I'm now working as a community organizer again. The work that transformed my life and brought me closer to God and ultimately turned me toward UU ministry. Community organizing is often misunderstood as being all about winning those political issues, and of course that's a part of it. But the most important part, in my mind, is the transformation of people. Over the years, I've also learned that it starts with my own willingness to be transformed, moved to tears, to open myself up vulnerably, share my story as I listen deeply to others. Prior to seminary, I worked in a neighborhood in San Francisco called the Tenderloin for some unknown reason. It was one of the most racially diverse neighborhoods in the city and one of the most marginalized. The bus from the San Quentin prison dropped off newly released inmates who had nowhere else to go on a corner in the Tenderloin. I'd seen those buses there. New immigrants with families mixed with sex workers and drug dealers. Drug deals happened openly on the streets. I helped tenants who were some of these new immigrants, some seniors on the low income, some families, some pretty highly addicted people struggling to get by. I helped them attain better security for their buildings, kick out drug dealing management, and fight unreasonable rent increases. It changed the day-to-day living experiences for people for sure. But in my heart of hearts, I believe the most profound changes were internal, what was happening in their hearts and in mine. During those formative years, my experience of God shifted. I had already rejected the anthropomorphized male God of my Catholic childhood, but I didn't have a replacement. Working in this relational way across difference, I came to experience God as the movement, the energy that moves us from despair to hope. A transformation of the heart that happens when people are able to risk to come together, to see themselves as powerful, communally powerful, as well as individually powerful, and to have some agency over their lives. The holy work begins with simple and not so simple one-to-one conversations with people outside of one's usual circle of family and close friends. In a powerful little booklet called The Power of Relational Action, lifelong community organizer Ed Chambers describes these intentional public conversations as the mixing of spirits. Public conversations as the mixing of spirits. I was stopped in my tracks when I read this because I can understand I understand that in private, intimate relationships, we bring our spirits together and love happens and beautiful things happen, but public ones, yes, it can happen in public relationships. Chambers writes, we die if we only have a private life. While private life is where we experience a mixing of human spirits at the most fundamental level, we also need public life to get out of ourselves, to leave our mark in the world, and to fulfill our individual calling or our specific vocation. Chambers says that these intentional public conversations for community organizing involve knowing yourself, what makes you tick, being interested in others, what makes them, and being willing to be vulnerable and accountable with others to enter into relationships that lead to action. That's how change happens. We connect with one another and we create a catalyst of energy that invites us to create change. And regardless if you see yourself as an organizer leading people into action or not, I'd say that a meaningful public life requires some risk to know and to be known. And that risk can, as Margaret Wheatley says, change us, our community, and even our planet. When I moved from Oakland, California to Boulder County, I was a little concerned about entering into a more homogeneous community and losing access to the kind of diversity that I revel in. And that did happen, for sure. Along with scurrying around like a parrot managing family life and congregational ministry, my circle of contacts did grow more homogeneous. And that's been a loss. But I'm realizing that it doesn't and even didn't have to be that way. Last week, I responded to an email, a public invitation that probably went out to a few hundred people. It was to join the Islamic Center right around the corner from here in breaking of the fast of Yom Ashura. It's an Islamic holiday akin to Passover in Judaism, but it's just celebrated at a different time of year because they have a different calendar. Hundreds of people got this email. I'm sure of that. And maybe even some of you are on the mailing list for the Islamic Center. Something happened to me and I decided to accept, assuming that I would be going to a nice large gathering. I arrived there about 10 minutes early and there were about 6 cars in the parking lot. Yeah. True confession, I considered driving away. I knew this would be a difficult cultural experience, and I'd be crossing over a border into someplace foreign to me. I sat there examining my own fears in my car and my own biases. And I thought of all those people who do that to enter our UU congregations for the first time as well. Maybe their own biases about religious life, entering into a place that's going to feel foreign if you've never been to a congregation before, all those things. So I took the risk to get out of my car, put a scarf over my head, and walked in. And yes, I was one of about 3 people from outside the community who attended this gathering. The 3 of us, I think, were the only white people in the group. Maybe there were 2 or more, a couple more white people, and there were about 40 other people there. I was greeted with so much hospitality and remembered my studying in my Islamic study about hospitality. This is taking me back to seminary, how hospitality is so central to Islam. I felt it as soon as I walked in the door. I was asked to take off my shoes and shown to the woman's door into the sanctuary. But it wasn't long before I was invited to sit up closer to the front so I could hear the discussion better. And following his talk, Imam Nadir recognized me from another meeting we'd both attended and invited me to join him for the community dinner that was going to follow the evening prayers. I stayed for prayers, following the standing and sitting and bowing rituals, and grateful that I was limbered up from yoga. Going into the women's door of the large dining hall, I was all of a sudden in a large room, and there weren't any dividers between the women's side and the men's side, but you certainly knew which side was which. And I wonder how I would have dinner with the imam. Did I need to go in around the other door, and wouldn't that be weird to have a woman walking into the men's door? Or did I have to cross over this imaginary boundary in this room, imaginary but so clear? Again, hospitality followed, and Fada, who had greeted me at the door before, walked me over to the imam's table, crossing that boundary with me before returning to the women's side. And Imam Nadir and I had a beautiful conversation over dinner, sharing stories about how we got into the ministry, learning about each other's religious beliefs, basically just finding out what was it in our heart of hearts that inspired us, brought us to the table. And I have to say, no earth-shattering change came of it in that moment, but there was an exchange of contact information and a willingness to continue to get to know one another. And I felt more alive after this meaningful conversation that went way beyond talking about the weather. We can take risks to enter into more meaningful conversations and relationships with new people. I do know that with those risks, we inevitably get hurt, and sometimes we hurt others. Next week, I'll be sharing about how we make amends and repair relationship with those when those inevitable hurts happen. But to return to Margaret Wheatley, human conversation is the most ancient and easiest way to cultivate the conditions for change, personal change, community change, organizational change, and planetary change. I invite you into this risk joyfully, seeking to make real engagement with one another, and see if it makes you come alive. Blessed be.
I know that we know and love Lean on Me. It's such a beautiful gem in our hymnal. And I want to invite you to ponder these invitations from Bill Withers. If there are, swallow your pride. If there are things that you need to borrow, no one can fill your needs if you don't let them show. That we're in this community and beyond, that when we risk that opening, something beautiful can happen. So please rise in body or in spirit, and let's sing Lean on Me. Thank you, Heidi. Awesome.
Was that me? I'm not sure if that was what that was. Oh. As we have done in years past, during the summer months, we suspend our Share a Plate program. And for the summer months, the proceeds go from our plate collection to support the programs and ministries of UUCB. We will resume Share Our Plate in September. I invite you to give as generously as you are able. For those online, you can use the QR code or find a link in the video description. For those gathered in person, you can scan the QR code on our screen or make a donation as the ushers now pass the baskets. May our gifts be used to enact justice, bringing peace and love to the Boulder community.
Life offers us an invitation each and every day to forge meaningful connections. Look around here, there's probably people here you don't know very well. This beautiful congregation could be your laboratory. The invitation for you is to go forth, paying attention to the stirrings in your own heart and curiously engaging others about the stirrings in theirs. And together we will create the world that we know is possible. May it be so.
Please rise in body or in spirit as we close in song. If you're a person who loves making physical contact, this is a great moment. If that is not your preferred way of being, feel free to put your hands on your chest or keep them down at your sides to let your neighbors know that you'd rather not be touched in this moment.